Okay, in this video, we are going to be showing you how to access your previous 7 days. And after we show you how to do that, then we are going to jump into a refresher on how to actually do a paper log. And by this point, everyone knows that the 18th through the 22nd, everyone's going to need to be on paper logs due to scheduled maintenance on our ELDs. So let's jump into it. Right here, you're going to see when you come to this page, in order to access your previous 7 days, the first button you're going to click on is going to be roadside check. It'll populate this next screen. You're going to click on no pin. And then at this point, you're going to click on the button compliance print. Once you click on this, it's going to take you into the portal where you'll be able to access your previous 7 days. Right here, this is for the day of the 14th, which is the most current day at this point as you're looking at it. And then if you want to access a previous day, you're going to click the back arrow and it'll take you on and so forth to the previous days if required. So this is an easy way to access your previous 7 days of logs. And once we get done showing this, we'll run through it one more time and then we'll jump into the refresher on how to actually do a paper log. So we're going to back out of here, run through it one more time. Again, when you come to this screen, click on roadside check, click on no pin, click on compliance print, let the system load. And once it populates, you will then have access to your previous 7 days.
All you drivers for Cypress and Sunbelt should have a driver's daily log, paper logbook. Okay, you're required by law to carry one because in situations like the upcoming situation, paper logs are going to be required for your record of duty status. Okay, which is required by federal law. So we operate here at Cypress Sunbelt under the 70-hour 8-day rule. Okay, drivers. When you switch to your paper logs, it's got to be filled out properly, okay? All the information, the actual day that you're working, the name of the carrier address, the main office address, all has to be filled out, okay? Remember, we're subject to inspection by the Department of Transportation, so these things have to be filled out properly. You would include your tractor truck number and your trailer number, okay? All the information filled out, and of course, at the end of the day, you'll compute your miles driven for that day, and your total miles, and your recap, which we'll get into in a second. Okay, drivers, with a paper log, it's important that you log as you go. Update your duty status as it applies. You come in the mornings, you go to dispatch to get your billing information, your load information, trailer. You want to make sure that when you start your day going to dispatch, that you log it accordingly. Right here, I'm coming in at 5 o'clock in the morning and I'm going to dispatch. Now you have your remarks section that you'll see in your paper log. This tells you what time and what you were doing at that time, okay? Very important. It writes a picture of your workday from start to finish. And you put in your remarks section, we have these flags here. The flags indicate and tell the story of what you're doing. So we're in Jacksonville, Florida. I'm gonna abbreviate Jax, Florida. And we're getting our bills and we're getting ready to pre-trip our trailer. So I'm gonna put pre-trip. I don't have the best handwriting, but we're telling the story. We're gonna pre-trip. So we get our trailer, and of course, when you get your trailer, you're gonna put in your information. Your bill of lading information, it's at the bottom of your log sheet. Everything has to be detailed, okay? And we're starting today, so we get that first box in, okay? We spend about 45 minutes to an hour pre-tripping, and we go through the safety lane. You gotta go through the safety lane here at Cypress Sunbelt, come or going, empty or loaded. And we get our bills from dispatch after we get our safety slip, and we're free to go. Okay, We log as we go. So you got to make sure that you make that entry before you get out on the road. You pull out the gate, we're going to Savannah. So we want to make sure that we have this duty status updated. Now Savannah's about a 2.5 hour ride in the big truck. I'm gonna call it 2.5 hours. And when we get to Savannah, we get to CK Supply or Capital Materials. And I gotta go back to my paper log as I get out of the truck and go back to on duty not driving now, because now we gotta unstrap, we gotta untarp, we gotta get ready to get the load off, okay? And now I'm gonna make a note in my remarks. It's 8:30, we're in Savannah, we're at Capital Materials. All I'm gonna do is put on the remarks that we are in Savannah, Georgia, and I'm gonna put SAV for short. Unload, okay? As you can see the pattern developing here. Every time you change your duty status, it must be notated, okay? And still keeping up with your hours. Now, we spend an hour there getting unloaded at the Capital Materials, and we get a dispatch to come back to Jacksonville. Now, I know some of you guys will probably wonder, well, if we go back to drive, do we need to notate it as such? It's pretty self-explanatory. We know that you've gone back to drive. We come back to Jacksonville. Now that we're empty, we get the green light, I'm gonna call it 2 hours, and we get back. We get back to Jacksonville, you still gotta go through the safety lane. So here we go, another inspection. You change your duty status again in your paper logs, okay? We're trying to minimize or maximize our driving time and minimize that on duty. But when it's time for on duty, it's on duty. So we're back at Jax. And you can put post trip, because we're coming back through the safety lane. We've already got our dispatch while we was leaving Savannah to come back and pick up another trailer, okay? So while we're here in Jacksonville, getting our second load, we're gonna go down south. But while we're here, we're gonna get our new trailer information. So say like we get another trailer for our trip down south, that'll be our new trailer for the second load. We have to notate it as such. We've already got our first trailer, now we're getting our second trailer. And you're gonna put your new bill of lading information down on the manifest. Now let me go back. When we made our transit from Savannah back to Jacksonville, I failed to show you that we should have put a DH here, okay? Deadhead, we're empty now, okay? So if, DOT pulls us over and they say, hey, you're not showing deadhead, he can hit you for that. And he's gonna check and make sure you have that trailer you're pulling and that you are empty. They will do that, okay? All right, so we get our information. Now, one of the important things is, in your first 8 hours of your 14-hour workday, you're required to take a 30-minute break. You can show that off duty, you can show it on duty, but you gotta show it, okay? So while I'm getting my information, I'm waiting for this load to come out of USG, I go through the safety lane, I'm gonna show 15 minutes, and then I'm gonna go take a 30-minute break. I'm gonna stop the clock and go 30 minutes. I always tell drivers to take your 30-minute break later in your first date, not so early. If you take it so early, you'll still have more than 10 hours left in the day. That means there'll be another 8-hour period, and you're gonna have to stop again, and this time the clock won't stop. It'll keep running, okay? And I'll notate it as such. I'll put a flag here at 11:45, and you can run it straight down. And I'll put Jax, Florida, and we'll put 30-minute break. Okay? That way, if DOT looks and sees if you've taken your 30-minute break, you have it notated as such, okay? All right, I've got my load, I got my trailer information, and I'm going back through the safety lane. So now I've finished my 30-minute break and I'm gonna go back on duty. Okay, go back through the safety lane, and I'll notate it as such. Jax, Florida, and you can put pre if you want to, because you're doing another pre-trip. Again, we got a new trailer. We got to make sure we have a good trailer that's road ready, okay? I get my safety slip, I got my new trailer information, I got a second bill of lading information, and now I'm going back on the road, okay? I'm picking up a load, and I guess we're gonna go down to Tampa. So I get down to Tampa, or actually I'm on my way to Tampa, and I'd say about an hour and a half in, I got to stop and get some fuel. So I'm gonna stop and get fuel in Ocala, Florida. All right, there's our fuel stop. Okay, so I'm gonna notate it as such. Ocala, Florida. And you can put fuel, okay? And you guys know that you've been out there anywhere, 9 aisles, 9 fuel lanes. Sometimes it can be 5 or 6 deep. Sometimes you come in there and get in and out of there. I know in my experience, I've been able to get in and get out in about a half an hour, okay? And I usually like to do that in the middle of the day, okay? So as you see here, guys, you just have to update as you go with paper. I know with the computers that they give you prompts and all those kinds of things. But with paper now, you really have to stay on it and stay with your hours. All right, so we're a half hour at the Loves, and we get us our fuel, a little snack, okay? And then another hour and a half, we're gonna get to Tampa. Actually, we're gonna start hitting rush hour, so I'm gonna call Tampa at 4:30. We get to Tampa, and we're gonna go to the terminal over there and spend the night because our customer is shut down for the day. So we do a post trip. Now, Cypress Sunbelt, we're required to show 15 minutes on your pre and post trip, okay? Graph form, just like on your computer, okay? Just like in the truck. You show 15 minutes, and whatever you do, let's say like if you're at the truck stop, or we can say this is a truck stop. I gotta put my notation here, we're in Tampa now. You wanna log where you are, guys. It's important to log where you are, okay? Tampa, Florida. Post trip. All right, post trip. Okay. Now, again, going back to logging where we are, I know a lot of guys, when they're on the road, they get to the truck stop and they just go sleeper berth. Okay, but I always tell drivers to log where you are. If you go into the TA or to the Loves and you go get a bite to eat or take a shower and a bite to eat, you got your truck legally and safely parked, but you're not in it. Okay, you're doing something other than the truck's business. And say like if a Swift driver backs into you and hits your truck while you're inside taking a shower or getting something to eat. Well, when you come back, you know, your truck's been hit. A report's got to be filed. It's got to go to safety, DOT, or the police, the local police department's got to have information. And safety's going to want to know, well, did you get a tractor number? Did you get a truck number? Now, I know a lot of our trucks have, or all of our trucks have inward and outward facing cameras, but they may not capture everything. So it's important to log where you are, because if you log that you was in a sleeper berth, then you should be able to get out of the truck and identify the driver and all those kinds of things. But if you log sleeper berth, because again, once you're in an accident or an incident, they're going to summon your logs and they're going to look and see where you were at that particular time. And if you say that you was in the sleeper berth and you weren't, well, you're not going to be able to give them the information that they need to find out who hit you, especially in a hit and run situation. So it's important to log where you are. When I was on the road, I always logged off duty because you're inside, you get in a shower, it's been a long day. And you wind down. It takes a little while to wind down, but you know when you get back in the truck, your day is done, okay? Now, again, you're just telling the story of your duty status. Now we're gonna total up this day and see what we got. Remember, we cannot exceed a 14-hour workday, all right? So we add up each one of these 4 categories that we've had in this 24-hour period. Remember, this is all in a 24-hour period. Here's our off-duty time, 5 o'clock in the morning before we came into work, okay? Here's our half hour of our 30-minute break in our first 8 hours. Here's another hour and a quarter. So we got 5, 5.5, 5.75, 6.75 hours. Okay? Sleeper berth, we hit the rack or we knew we weren't going anywhere at 6 o'clock. 6 to midnight. 6 hours. Okay? Now, this is 3 and 4. This is our hours worked for the day, staying within that 14-hour period in a 24-hour workday. Your workday cannot exceed no more than 14 hours, but it's an accounting for the whole 24 hours, okay? So here we go. Here's our 2.5-hour transit to Savannah, okay? Here's our 2 hours coming back, so we're looking at 4.5. 4.75, 5.756. You guys know that a quarter of an hour is 15 minutes. 4 quarters, that's 60 minutes, okay? So we got 4.5, 4.75, 5.756, 6.25, 7.25, 7.5, 7.75 hours. Okay, now let's look at our on-duty time. Here's that hour we spent in Savannah getting unloaded, okay? I'm sorry, the pre-trip this morning in Jacksonville. Then here's the hour in Savannah getting unloaded, okay? So we got 2 hours. Another post-trip, 15 minutes. So we got 2.25. And here's another 30 minutes for our post-trip or pre-trip. So we go 2, 2.25, 2.75, 3. Here's our fuel stop in Ocala. That's another half an hour. And then we have another quarter of an hour on our post-trip. So let's go back and add it up. Here's 2 hours, 2.25, 2.5, 2.75, 3, 3.25, 3.5. Okay, now, these 2 lines right here, guys, driving and on duty, you don't want to exceed 14 hours. This is going to be the accounting for this particular day in this 24-hour period of your work day, okay? Right here, 3 and 4, we're going to add these 2 together, okay? That's going to be our hours worked at the end of the work day. But let's look at what we did for this whole accounting, okay? We got 6.75 hours off duty. Sleeper berth 6 times, okay, 6 hours. So here we go. We got 6 and 6 is 12, and 7 is 19, and 3 is 22. 3 quarters and 1 is 23. Another 3 quarters and another quarter is 24. That's 24 hours. Okay, it has to add up to what we did in 24 hours. Now, what we did here for our 14, our days worked, you got 7.75 plus 3.5. 10, 11, 11.25. This is what you worked this particular day, and it goes against your balance for your 70-hour work week, okay? And you keep adding them up as you go, and that tells you what your balance is on your 70-hour work week. Just like the computer. The computer does the same thing, but now we're doing it by hand. It's still in graph form, and you still have to account for everything you've done as a change of duty status. It's your record of duty status. Okay, drivers, we operate under the 70-hour, 8-day rule. And on paper, you keep track of each day's hours worked within a 24-hour period. Still keeping with our record of service. Okay, these include the categories of lines 3 and 4. Okay, now the sample I gave you earlier of how we graphed our work day, that Monday right there, 11.25, and we carry on through the week. Tuesday, 12.0, Wednesday, 10.5 hours. Okay, now, what we just showed you on your log sheet is sections A and B. This is how this second column right here, this is what is added to your balance or subtracted from your balance of your 70-hour work week. As you see, as we go on 11.25, we added 12 more hours because we worked on Tuesday, and that increases our total against our 70-hour work week. In both of those sections, A and B, you record your day's work and you subtract from your balance of your 70-hour work week. This gives you how many hours you have left remaining on your 70-hour work week. Now, as you can see, we worked all the way through, okay? I plan on staying out. So we get to Sunday, and you can see my balance is pushing up against the 70-hour limit right here. By Sunday, I'm at 68.75 hours. Okay, so I only got an hour and a quarter left to drive. Now, for those of you that stay out and use your recaps, the hours that I worked the previous Monday, 7 days previous, I'm going to pick those hours up midnight, Sunday night, Monday morning. So while I'm taking my 10-hour break Sunday night at midnight, I'm going to pick up the 11.25 hours that I worked the previous Monday. So that is added to my balance. Remember, I said the balance was 1.25 hours. I'm going to add 11.25 hours to my balance. Now my new total will be the old balance plus the 11.25 hours, which in this case would make it 12.5 hours. I'd have 12.5 hours to work on Monday. Then at midnight, Monday night, Tuesday morning, I'm going to pick up these 12 hours that I worked the previous Tuesday. And that's added to my balance, so on and so forth. Some people call them pickups. I think the formal name for them are recaps. Some people even call them drop-off, but I like to call them pickups because you can use them. That's how you keep track of your 70. And again, as you saw at the beginning of the frame, you got the A and B's. You have to keep track of your hours. The days that you work, they have to be recorded and totals taken at the same time. This is how you stay in compliance on paper. We've all gotten spoiled with our technology and the computers keeping track for us, but here, this will be a good exercise for you drivers. Just in case you lose your equipment while you're out on the road, you have to revert back to paper because you have to, by law, have a sheet, a paper log sheet for your recording of your hours of service. So, in summary, log as you go. Whenever you change your duty status, log it as such. Make your comments. Stay current. It's your responsibility as a professional driver to keep track of your hours. You can't plead ignorance, okay? We can all add and subtract. Do it safely, do it professionally. You can still get your runs in, but you still have to stay compliant. And most of all, that's the most important thing, is being professional, and that comes with staying compliant.